Hey everybody, we are here for another movie mainline memory, or mainline memory for short, because
Oh boy.
Eric said it was too wordy. So,
I got mainline
we're
memory.
here with Pete Abeyta. If you didn't see or listen to the previous meeting we had, we also did a creator spotlight with him. But here we're here to do a memory. So we would like to know, first of all, introduce yourself. Who are you? Why do we
Uh,
want to hear you?
Thank you, Bruce. My name is Pete Abeyta. I'm one of the hosts, one of the three hosts on Middle Class Film Class podcast. It's a movie review and just general funny entertainment show, available on all streaming services. Look us up, Middle Class Film Class, mcfcpodcast@gmail.com. Send us an email if you want us to break down a movie, or like what you're hearing or hate what you're hearing.
Very good. Now, start with a memory. What's an impactful, or not impactful, super memorable movie-going experience or two that you've had?
Well, the first one that sticks out to me, the youngest memory I have that was impactful in a movie, was in the year 2000. It was the original Matrix movie,
Yeah.
and so I have an older sister, and then I have three older cousins that are like my siblings, and the five of us grew up in the same neighborhood. My cousin Jeremy, he may as well be my brother. He's 4 years older. Always looked up to him. He was like my shepherd into nerd culture. He showed me D&D early. We
There's
played
always
Magic.
one that does that.
Oh yeah, yeah, like legitimate. We
Right.
we would like pirate PlayStation 2 games and stuff together, like really early nerd stuff. And he got me hyped up about the Matrix, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. And he's like talking about simulation theory and stuff. And I don't know how old I am at this 2000. I'm probably 13.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's a good age for the Matrix.
oh my gosh, it was great. So we went and saw it at, I grew up in Vacaville. We saw it in the Vacaville, Brendan 16 cinema. And I remember it was the first time I'd ever seen someone smoke weed in public. Because there were people smoking weed in the theater, and there was like clouds in the theater. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the cops are going to come any second. And, and, that aside, it was just mind blowing for me. The storytelling was great. It was like 100% immersive. I'd never seen graphics like that before. It really was, it was the first movie I remember like talking to all my friends about after I left the theaters. I'm like, oh my gosh, you need to go see The Matrix.
So I'm assuming the moment where he gets unplugged and you find out like what's actually happening at about, and it was at about the 30-minute mark, must have just been like,
yeah. No, I mean, the whole thing was, yeah, the whole thing was great. Even the stuff in the simulation, in the Matrix, in the original world it was just really, just like the goth punk club that he's in, where he meets Trinity and finds out that she's a girl. You're
Right.
like, you're a girl? And she's like, why'd you assume otherwise? And it was like just really subtle, like anti-misogyny, it was very cool, very cool. And I love
that's really on brand for the Wachowski sisters now.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, even with Bound, if you've seen Bound, I assume by now, their first movie.
It's on my list. I've heard really good things, and it keeps getting buried by newer stuff on my list.
Yeah, don't sleep on Bound, but I mean, you see it right out of the gate with them that they're definitely kind of cutting edge on all that stuff, and they do that throughout their whole career, even if the later stuff doesn't quite hit you.
Yeah,
they never stop that kind of idea. So
I mean, Matrix is fine, but Speed Racer is where it's at.
Speed Racer is like
you want the
candy.
ultimate. Yeah, you want the ultimate Wachowski experience.
Yeah.
And you like Emil Hirsch and John Goodman. Watch Speed Racer.
Why wouldn't you?
If you want to have a ecstasy induced panic attack.
See, but I'm the old guy that watched Speed Racer when it was on TV, and we'd watch the cartoons. That was like my first introduction to, I guess, anime at the time. Was like Speed Racer, and then they had a thing called Star Blazers, which you probably have never heard of, but it
never heard of Star Blazers. Sorry, making me feel really young.
Yeah, well, you are compared to me. But yeah, that kind of led, and I'm sure that they had seen Speed Racer a lot. I mean, Speed Racer was one of those things. Like, I mean, in my era, you'd come home in the afternoon, they'd have all the repeats, and be like Munsters, Addams Family, Brady Bunch, blah 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 blah, and Speed Racer was one of those things that would kind of pop in. So because it was probably cheap, they could probably buy it from Japan and get it for nothing and just dub it, and it was an
Yeah.
easy one for them to keep showing over and over again. So I'm sure that's kind of what led them to wanting to make Speed Racer. Well, something I was going to say about the Matrix. So that one part that really blew you away, obviously. I think it was really interesting what you're saying about the punk goth club and all that kind of stuff, because I think
Yeah.
you're right. It really captures a time as well, even though it's future. It captures a time, that kind of late 90s, early thousands, where you have this weird intersection of culture, of rave culture, drum and bass and electronic is becoming like more mainstream for the first time, but in like youth culture, and the beginning of like computer culture in like mass society, and like the whole underground of, I mean, kind of hacking was kind of in the thing. Like they thought what hacking was like kind of a cultural thing. You got
it was better represented in that than it was in hackers.
Oh god, yeah.
There's no green light projection on your face as you're typing very quickly.
Yeah.
You know.
I remember the early computer hacking kind of movies always had the same thing, and they always have something like, first of all, when everyone typed on the computer, it was always like, they would say what they're typing as they did it, because people were like, how can we make this interesting? And there was always some kind of a weird like proto CGI version of what it's like to be inside of a computer. And there'd be like boxes or doors and like roads.
It's always so cringy to go back and watch, but at the time you're like, this is the future.
Exactly.
Well, gosh, what was I going to say? The hacker aspect of it was big, and my cousin was into that whole thing, the whole hacker thing. But I remember the whole goth punk thing. I don't think I would have gotten as deep into that, hardcore music scene or like death metal scene or whatever. I don't even know what you'd call it. When my parents split up when I was 15, I was 13 when I saw The Matrix, and that was like 15 was when it like switched on for me, like exploring my own self and having my own personality. And I remember discovering Slipknot's self-titled album, Static X's self-titled album.
Sure.
And there was a great album called Devious Method by Hive, and it was all drum and bass. And you hear a lot of the familiar songs now, but it was just like a very specific point in time, and it like resonated really strong with me. If I never saw The Matrix and I didn't get into it, and it didn't get its hooks in me, I don't know if I would have drifted towards it. I probably would have stayed with Steely Dan and the Doobie Brothers.
Well, and I think that's that time period when you've got like things like you've got like Prodigy hitting pretty big, you got Fatboy Slim, you've got all that stuff kind of blowing up. You've got like Radiohead getting all crazy and experimental. So Hot Topic is a thing, like a big thing.
I spent a lot of money at Hot Topic in junior high.
Right. So I think that's kind of right in that zeitgeist. I mean, if you think of Matrix is just tapped right into that. I mean, it's just asking for that kind of crowd to like pop into it.
Yeah, you're right. And it did feel like a defining movie for me in my youth, my angsty youth days before I found my angst. But there was another movie that hit pretty hard for me was The Dark Knight, 2008. Only 8 years later. And besides the fact that it was an amazing movie, besides the fact that I was already excited for it because of Batman Begins. I love that. And I was excited for the follow-up. I had no idea who Nolan was at the time. I had seen Memento, but that's it. And I didn't put two and two together. We didn't have Wikipedia or IMDb or anything back then. And YouTube was just, 4 years old at that point.
Right.
But I remember specifically that viewing of The Dark Knight, and I was sitting next to this little chubby kid and his whole family, and they came. There's probably 7 of them, and they came in halfway through the first like scene, the bank robbery scene, 5 minutes in, 6 minutes in, and they spent the entire first 7-8 minutes of the movie when they sat down divvying up their popcorn, and the little kid next to him saying, "Papi, I want my popcorn. Papi, give me my popcorn." And and I had my giant Slurpee. I always get popcorn in a red Slurpee, and I had it next to me, right next to this, between me and this kid's seat. And I looked over at some point when it was in the middle of the second act, and he's taking a hit off my Slurpee, and he's
Oh
drinking off my
no.
Slurpee, and I snatched it out of his hand, and I just kind of glared at him, and he's like, "I'm so sorry, Papi, I want a Slurpee." And it was so funny. He had to have been 9, maybe, or something,
Sure.
and I just
Was he bored by it? I thought you were going to say that the family walked out or something. So,
no, they came in and they were just distracted. It was just a bunch of
yeah,
kids that were too young to watch a movie like that and appreciate it.
right.
And it was just I just always remember that. And it was so funny because, I didn't
But you
care.
still locked into it, though. I take it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It
Yeah.
was a gripping of enough of a movie to where that did not dissuade me from my praise. It was,
And that's got a level of kind of nihilism to it too. And whew. Of course, Heath Ledger is just on point.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, really good. Those are two that stick out to me. I mean, my viewing of The Lighthouse on opening weekend was it was everything I wanted to be and more. It was so good. It was so interesting. And I felt like this great, like 1920s vibe from some of the shots, 1920s cinema vibe, that is. And I don't know, that movie stuck with me, but I could go through my list of favorite movies in the theater, but those two stuck out.
yeah, that's awesome. I can totally relate to some of that. I mean, I think about mind-blowing movies for me. I mean, I'm a lot older, so for me, they're younger. I mean, a big obvious one was Star Wars. I saw Star Wars when it first came out, and it was weird because now you think about the promotion machine, how strong it is. Like usually, if you're into movies or even slightly into movies, you know what's coming out and you know
Oh, yeah.
what to kind of expect. But I remember it's just TV spots once in a while would come on, and that was it. And it was when you saw the original TV spots for Star Wars, it was kind of like, what's this? Because it wasn't really like anything else at the time. And I remember going in and I was like, I think at that point I was 12 or 13. So I was like, what the hell? And that's like the equivalent of dragging my parents to go see it for 7 or 8 times in the theater, which is pretty rough because I couldn't go alone. They wouldn't let me go alone.
Do you have any older siblings?
I'm the oldest. I have a younger sibling. He went with me and he loved it. He didn't go as many times as I did. What was that?
I said, I don't want to hurt your feelings, Bruce, but my dad tells me a very similar story about going to see Star Wars on a weekend.
No, that's for sure. But I mean, that was before I got hardcore into like the more crazy stuff. But a few years later, I mean, I was taking myself and going and seeing, Dawn of the Dead and Lucio Fulci movies and like Evil Dead in the theater with like 3 people and all those things, So
what year did Clockwork Orange come out?
Like 71, 72.
So that was before Star Wars then.
Oh yeah. It was like
on that was already past you were too young for that.
Yeah, that was one of those things where I saw it so I also was there at the beginning of VHS and starting, so you could actually get movies at home, and HBO and all that stuff was kind of getting going pretty good too. But to actually be able to bring a movie home and watch it yourself, that was like blew everything up, because now I could go find all these crazy movies that you'd never see anywhere. Like you wouldn't see Clockwork Orange on TV, even on cable, it wouldn't show it. But I knew about.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
they probably distanced themselves from that movie.
I actually, I'll tell you, I have a vivid memory of. I mean, I must have been 14 or 15, and I had rented out Clockwork Orange, and I put it in, and I was watching it. I remember my mom walking by, and it wasn't the worst scene,
sure,
but it was close to it. It was the scene where no, it wasn't the home invasion. Thank God. But it was the scene where they're kicking the homeless dude, and singing in the rain in that overpass, kind of that little tunnel thing, which is an amazing shot. You probably can picture it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And my mom's like, "What's this trash? Turn it off!" And I had to turn off and come back and watch it later. So that was one of those things, which is kind of funny because that's another thing. My parents, I don't know what your parents did. My parents took me to a lot of movies that really weren't age appropriate at all. I was 12 or 13. I remember going to see 10 and seeing movies with lots of like pretty graphic stuff in it.
I've heard a lot of people say that in like the 70s or 80s that was kind of the thing, but I know there was a divide in the rating system, and it really wasn't like everybody knows what PG-13 means. Everybody knows what R means, maybe not so much. But my mom made a really strong point for me to show me foreign movies at a young age. So cool. I watched Amelie, Life is Beautiful, Bend It Like Beckham, which is, cheesy camp, but it was like showing this English, Indian culture thing. And she would pull me out of school. And I'm from Northern California, Sacramento area. And I grew up halfway between San Francisco and Sacramento. And she would take me out and go to this independent film house in Mill Valley, which is a real small little town in the Bay Area on the coast. And we would see movies like that. And she's like, you need to learn how to watch a movie and appreciate a movie for the culture. And also
Nice.
don't be afraid to see a movie that's got subtitles on it. And it's like, it's great. I can never thank her enough for that, because, now I'm watching, watching Border,
Oh God, yes, Border.
like blowing my brain up when I'm like, oh my God, that's what a troll dick looks like. Oh my God.
Or something, whatever's happening there. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever it is. So I'm sorry. I hope I can say the D word on this.
If it's Greg, he doesn't like it, but I can go there. That's kind of funny. I think it was last year or the year before, I had my oldest watch Amelie. He's 15 now. He was like probably 13 or 14 then. Watched him watch Amelie. The first R-rated movie I took him to was Fury Road. We went and saw Fury Road together.
That's a good one. That's a good R-rated movie to see.
And I went and previewed that first. I'm like, this will be a good first R-rated movie for him. But every couple of weeks we watch a movie. So we watched like Raising Arizona. We watched Donnie Darko. So we're just kind of giving him giving them a good mix.
Watched your Paddington 2 review. I enjoyed.
Yeah, Paddington 2. That was my littlest guy. And,
that was your youngest.
Yeah, and I had told him I got Paddington 2 along with the Vitch.
The Vitch. Yeah.
But they're not going to watch.
That was episode 3 on our podcast. We're big Ari Aster
Eggers.
and Eggers.
Yeah,
both. The two. I mean, and they're both in their sophomore release. So I mean, it's hard to say, what the future holds. But you heard that Ari Aster's next movie is supposed to be 4 hours long.
Yeah, but Midsummer original cut was like 4 hours too. So
yeah.
So he just does that. He takes them. I'm fine with it. I don't care because he's putting out amazing stuff. Or something else I was going to say about that, but and as far as I think the biggest influence for me, and I don't know if you had this, you're kind of talking about the person that got you into nerd culture or whatever. Yeah. I had this. It was like the tail end of the 60s kind of teaching group in my high school. So even though by then it was the 80s, but they were like kind of like leftovers. They still kind of had that held on to them, right? So they made sure to show us movies. So we saw 2001. We saw a movie called Walkabout, if you ever heard of that, called Nicholas Rogue's Walkabout, super artsy, weird stuff. Harold and Maude, which is like pretty much like my favorite movie almost of all time.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you've ever seen Harold and Maude before.
I've seen enough scenes of it where I've seen the whole movie, but never start to finish. It's one of those.
It's a good one. It's the proto. I call him the proto goth kid. He's the first goth kid. Not really quite all the things, but he kind of set the template.
That's cool.
And you can't do better than Ruth Gordon. If you've seen Ruth Gordon in that, and if you've ever seen her in Rosemary's Baby. If you've never seen Rosemary's Baby, she's amazing in that. But anyway, that kind of was a really good way to like get me into like seeing like different kind of movies. So I really appreciated that. Nice.
It's nice to talk to someone who's been at the new releases in the 70s, because I'm 30. I just turned 34.
Yeah. And
I'm the oldest of my entire friend group. All my friends are late 20s, 27, 26. And, so I'm pop, whenever someone's like, hey, do you remember MP3, YouTube to MP3 converter? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys remember LimeWire? That was
great. I do actually.
And it's like, I'm not that much older than everybody, but 6 years is, can be a lot. And, my Aunt Linda, she's, my mom's oldest sister, and they grew up together, obviously close, and she's got very similar sensibilities, but she's a fan of the black and white era. And she keeps telling me, you need to watch Orpheus. You need to watch Maltese Falcon. You need to watch, every Kurosawa movie you can get your hands on.
True.
And I just signed up for HBO Max, or we had HBO Go or something, and it just grandfathered us into HBO Max. And I'll tell you what, that service is like, if it was Netflix and HBO Max, I could probably survive, because it's got everything. It's got old Looney Tunes. It has probably 10 Kurosawa movies. It's got all these old Humphrey Bogart movies, and all the new stuff in between. Um,
Yeah, definitely those old movies are like, I mean, and the problem is they're really, you have to, that's like anything, you have to dig through them. There's a ton
mhm,
of them that just don't date well. Like you'll watch them and go like, this is an old movie.
yeah,
But you'll see other ones and they'll still be an old movie, but you'll also be struck by the amazing black and white photography in some of those films, or just
yeah.
the way they shoot things is sometimes just impeccable, amazingly beautiful shots
Mhm.
that, because they had to shoot in black and white, they learned how to do it really, really, really well.
Paint with shadows almost.
Yeah, you get so that all that noir is really known for that, but you also get there's some old horror films like Val Lewton is a really famous one. He did like Cat People, the original Cat People, and some of that stuff.
Hmm.
Or even if you go back to, if you've never done it, some of the really old Universal stuff is great too, like The
I like
Bride of Frankenstein and some of
yeah,
that stuff.
the Swamp Thing, or not Swamp Thing, but the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah,
From
that's
the
a little later. I think that's 40s or 50s, but you go back to like the actual like Bride of Frankenstein. Have you ever seen any of those original like
Hmm.
ones?
No, I haven't. I'm sure they're probably on HBO. HBO
Some of them
Max.
aren't great. Like Dracula's not necessarily that great, but if you see something like, I mean, everyone pretty much considers Bride of Frankenstein like kind of the
Okay,
pinnacle of those. But
I'll give
Bride
that a
of
watch.
Frankenstein, just watching the, like, that's, I forget the year, it's like 31,
Mhm.
32, late 20s, even like King Kong's in the same era. But
Yeah,
some of the stuff they shoot, some of the shots in there are just freaking stunning, and the set pieces too are just
Mhm.
amazing
Yeah.
too.
They didn't cut corners on set pieces back then too. It was I just watched Maltese Falcon because I went through
Mhm.
a bunch of these old ones and I went through all these recommendations from my aunt, and I looked at it. It's like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. How can you go wrong? And it was really, really great to see Humphrey Bogart be his simple, dickhead, charming self.
Right.
Because it's like this casual misogyny that's like laced into every sentence, you know. It's like you finish every sentence or every phone call with a female with "That's a good girl," and you're like,
Yeah.
and you're laughing at how casual it is, and it's so ridiculous. But it really, the dude's a smooth talker, and that was I fell in love with Peter Lorre in that movie.
Peter Lorre. Have you
So
ever seen M with Peter Lorre?
that's on the list. Yeah, I know that was his like one of his
Yeah.
headlining debut, or not debut, but the his
Kind of made him a star.
yeah,
Yeah. And that's I think I want to say Fritz Lang.
it is Fritz Lang. Yeah,
Yeah, Fritz Lang is one of those. That's when you get those German expressionist like filmmakers, Fritz Lang, and I forget who else I'm trying to think of. But some of those are also amazingly beautiful movies and weird. That one, M, is a surprisingly dark movie, and that's what you'll see too if you start investigating, because you get this period from like the late 30s, 40s till about the mid late 50s where there's some good stuff in there,
mm,
but it's right in the middle of code. So a lot of the stuff is really safe. A lot of stuff
mm,
is musicals or it's B movies, and a lot of the good stuff's in B movies.
yeah,
But you get pre-code, you'll be all of a sudden surprised. Could be seeing this ancient movie from like 1925 or something, like, what? There's nudity all of a sudden, or someone gets killed really violently, and you'll just be like, you'll
yeah.
kind of look sideways like, what's happening here, and you can forget like this
Grandfather
is,
watch this?
yeah, this is pre-code. This is like when the flappers and stuff were around, and gangsters,
Oh,
and they
that's
were
so.
just off the rails in some of those movies. So like the original Scarface is just brutal. So
I forgot that's a remake. Yeah.
yeah, the original Scarface, and there's a whole bunch of gangster movies that are these pot boilers. But like you said, with Bogart, yeah, that's that height of that like film noir era. And
Yeah.
if you get that classic film noir, it's like the asshole private dick,
Yeah.
and the femme fatale who's like gonna turn on you, she's not to be trusted. She comes in asking for him to find something, but really there's something else going on, and it's just always the MacGuffin.
Yeah. It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Well, I mean, I'm I would say that all that stuff is worth going back and watching, but if you're not appreciating, movies for the art form or whatever, as pretentious as that sounds, it sometimes it's hard to watch a 3 hour black and white movie in Japanese, you know.
It really is. And
Well,
and once again with any of those, you just kind of gotta pick and choose, and kind of you have to
yeah.
figure out your flow, because it's not all going to be your flow. I mean,
Mhm.
recently I went back and watched I don't know Tarkovsky, if you've ever gone into any of Tarkovsky's stuff yet,
Mhm.
Solaris and Stalker and all that stuff. I mean, it's artsy with a giant A, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty tough to get through, but it's also beautiful and you can see what's going on. But that's a perfect example of one of those ones where it's like, this may not be your jam, you know. You don't have to like put yourself through that if it's not your
You,
thing.
yeah, you don't have to go watch MacGruber. It's perfectly just as great.
Yeah.
It's not as artsy, but oh my God, it's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you seen MacGruber?
Oh yes, I've seen MacGruber for
Oh
sure.
my God, so
He puts what is it? He puts a feather. What does he put?
the celery stalk.
Celery in his butt. My favorite thing in MacGruber is the assembly of the team. You know, he assembles the whole team and
Burner Freedom and you know, Tinker Lutz.
See, that's the thing. I think in movie Mainline we're like that, and I feel like you guys are like this too. Just from the little bit I've caught, is that we can totally go into super artsy, and appreciate it and love it. Oh, here's my David Lynch movie. I love it. It's all obscure and symbolism and whatever. It is 3 hours long, but I can also easily just watch something that is just trash, but I love it. You know.
Yeah. There's a time and place for everything, and it doesn't have to be all serious all the time. You know, sometimes you want to watch Kung Fu Panda 3 while you're on edibles. You know, and that's a great experience.
Yeah. Have you seen the Paddington movies?
I have. I watched. You know, I heard the second one was very good, so I in the interest of completionism, I watched the first one first, and it was. I was perfectly fine. I liked it. I enjoyed it, and then I watched the second one. I'm like, this is really good. It's really good. And,
I think they're both pretty damn good, but once again, like
Brendan Gleeson, so funny.
God, he's so awesome in it.
Even like the grandma like shagging the security guard after downing a bottle of whiskey was good. You know, there's a lot of good stuff in there. It's not just for kids.
Yeah, and we were talking about in our little review, just even the little things they don't have to do in a movie like that, but they do, where they have the whole reenactment of the pop-up book.
Oh, that was great. Yeah,
I mean, that's just beautiful filmmaking that you did not have to put into that movie. So it's little tricks like that where you go like, okay, they're taking the extra step. And that's the kind of thing, if you appreciate any kind of movie that you can find a great action movie, but because it does that extra thing that makes it a great action movie, you know, and understanding to you what that is, or horror movie or sci-fi movie or whatever it is. So
I really wish there was a website. There's a website called musiccloud.com, music-cloud, I think, .com. And you can put in any artist you want, and it will make a little cloud around similar artists, and you can however close it is to it, the more likely you're going to like it. And you can have, put the Shins in there, and it'll spit out all kinds of really great stuff. And then you can put something like, Death Grips in, the aforementioned Death Grips, and it has a hard time struggling to find anything that's like it. It's like, Black Lotus, I guess, I don't know, and but I really wish there was something like that for movies. Spotify has their own algorithms, but I haven't ever seen anything like that.
No, I guess that's what our role is, to help people see that and do that.
Right.
Because I know that's what I like these kind of conversations, because we'll say something and it'll spark you off on some weird tangent. The Shins, like, who comes up with the Shins?
Give me you think of something and I'll pop it up and you can tell me what you think.
Well, who do I think's in the Shins? Who would get connected to the Shins?
Yeah.
Well, what was the name of that thing he did with the cross? He did that like offshoot that he did. I forget what it was called, where he was with Danger Mouse.
Oh, Broken Bells.
Broken Bells. I bet Mr. Elliott Smith behind me pops up with Shins. I bet you Death Cab for Cutie pops up. I bet you Decemberist probably pops up.
Okay, so we have interesting. Death Cab for Cutie's right next door.
Yeah.
We got the Decemberists right next door. Fleet Foxes, Modest Mouse, Arcade Fire, Vampire Weekend, Broken Bells. You got it. Spoon. The Strokes is like way off in the distance.
So basically everything early thousands that was pop, indie pop.
Soup John Stevens, Iron and Wine, Band of Horses, Of Montreal, Built to Spill. Whenever I'm feeling a certain vibe, and I'll listen to like one of Joseph's favorite albums, which he reminded me is so good, is Joy is an Act of Rebellion by Idols. So good. And I've been listening to that album a lot, and then I'll pop it on. I'll be like, okay, look, what's Idols? What's similar to Idols? And you'll get a lot of crazy like Brit punk shouting, rock sort of thing, But I really wish there was something like that. I guess you're right, though. We are those people.
Yes, good to do it. It's always fun to talk about music. I'm a big music guy too, so I don't have any problem going down that road as well.
Sure. Have you caught Orville Peck? He's a newer
Yes.
artist.
Yeah, Orville Peck with the little the little fringe going down.
Tap mask.
Yeah, out of the closet, gay cowboy, sings almost like a moody, like David Lynch country is what I would call him.
Every time I listen to him, I'll think of Roy Orbison in certain Orbison songs, definitely Johnny Cash, but the beats and the music is it's got a young injection in it.
Yeah.
And it's like he's your best friend, Canadian gay cowboy emo singer.
Absolutely.
It's so good. We were Joseph and Tyler and I, all three of us from the show, we were going to go see him in San Francisco. It would have been May or maybe April or something like that, and it got canceled obviously due to the COVID. So we got tickets to the next time he comes into town. We'll go see him, and we had that one, and back-to-back weekends we were going to go see him. And then King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, both in
San Francisco. I know them too.
Oh, cool.
King Gizzard, Lizard Wizard. Yes, I saw a couple of their videos. And I was watching them, and they were pretty fun. Definitely, Orville Peck seems like the kind of guy he would be in a bar in a David Lynch movie.
Yeah,
no doubt. And there'd be some weird lady dancing in the corner. I don't know how much David Lynch you've watched, but
enough.
Have you ever seen Fire Walk with Me?
No.
Fire Walk with Me was the movie he made after Twin Peaks, the series.
Okay.
And no one wanted it because the series was kind of dead at that point.
Sure.
But he still made a movie, which is like a prequel to his series, but way weirder and way more David Lynch. But there's a scene in there that I love. It's one of my favorite scenes of like those kind of bar kind of things. And it's awesome because he has them walk into this place, and I think it's called the One-Eyed Jacks. And they walk in. It's supposed to be like this border bar where shady stuff's going on, right? And they walk in, and the music's just like boom, 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 and he's got the soundtrack just maxed, peaked, so loud that he has to subtitle his own actors because you can't hear what they're saying. And I always thought that was one of the funniest jokes.
That's like, great,
because he's in control of that, but he's like, no, I'm going to make it so loud that we have to subtitle our actors, because it'll be like it's just this fucked up, weird, crazy.
He's a very. I mean, I wouldn't even call him weird. I would just call him unique. Like he's not. He's just an absolute 100% unique personality. I've watched The House that Jack Built probably 3 times on Netflix, and every time, no, not The House that Jack Built. What's Wrong with Jack, or what's the name of that? The one with the monkey.
Yes, The House Jack Built. No, that that is. That's.
I have not seen that yet.
That's Lars von Trier, which is a whole other thing. But he's his own weird. He's his own kind of weird. But
that one with the monkey.
Yes.
The short. It's like a 12-minute short. It's called What's Wrong with Jack, or what did Jack
something like that. And it's just, that's a perfect example of the kind of thing he does, where it's just like he fixed something weird. It's not perfectly well done.
No. It reminded me of, I hate this, I mean, I'm coming back to it, but it kind of reminded me of like old Speed Racer crappy animation with like the mouth moving.
The mouth moves and nothing else does. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I watched it and I'm like, what the fuck what was that? And then I had some people over. I'm like, hey, you guys want to watch something cool? And we put that on, and everyone's like, why'd you show me this? We're angry now.
That's true.
Like, all right, you guys can leave. I'm going to bring more people, and we're going to show them the next people.
But that's the thing. That's the thing that Lynch will do. Like, if you dig Lynch, because he'll do these super dark, super like, mystical, like, I can't figure this out. It's so surrealistic. It's, oh my God, it's so artsy. But then he'll just have like straight up comedy in there. That's just bizarre and almost silly sometimes. And that I really appreciate the fact that he can try to put both things in there. Yeah. And I mean, God, if you ever seen Wild at Heart, that thing's just goofy as fuck sometimes.
Yeah, we watched one of our good friends. His name is Adam. He's called into our show a couple times. We have a little segment on the podcast called Adam Plops, and Adam's one of Joseph's coworkers, and he has this thing where he'll walk by and he'll plop this DVD on Joseph's desk and say, "Hey, watch this. It's weird," and he'll give this crazy movie to watch. And Adam runs this thing in Sacramento called Night at the Red Museum. It's a
Hmm.
free movie night. It's in
Oh, I
Duluth.
heard him. Yeah, I heard him talking. He was on
Yeah,
the. Yeah, I heard that. I heard that.
one of
Yeah.
the recent episodes. He's
Yeah.
called in a couple times, and we have him on every couple weeks now. And the idea is you go in, it's free, no admission. Bring your own beer, bring your own drinks, bring your own food, whatever you want, popcorn, and you just sit in these old church pews, and you project it on this big white brick wall, and we watch Nosferatu with a live orchestra, or not orchestra, but like a ambient electro band, or what was it, Zardoz with Sean
Yeah.
Connery, or Wild at Heart, or Sleepaway Camp, or Starship Troopers, something crazy that just makes you kind of drop jawed throughout the most of the movie. And it's a really good time. But we watched Wild at Heart there, and I'm just like, this is something else. I really loved Willem Dafoe in that.
Oh yeah, he plays. Oh, what's the guy's name?
Bobby Peru.
Bobby Peru. Yeah. I can tell you a story about seeing Wild at Heart in the theater.
Okay.
That's the only time that I've been to a movie where, so you walk up, you pay your ticket, whatever. You walk up and you go to the person that takes your ticket, like right before you go in.
Uh-huh.
They take your stub, and they said, "Hey, you may really hate this movie. If you don't like." If you don't like this movie and you want to walk out in the first like half hour, we'll give you your money back.
Oh my God. That's so
I've
funny.
never had anyone do that. This is like at like an AMC type of theater. This is not like some weird art house theater.
Oh,
And
that's great.
I'm like, okay, well, this has got to be something then, But I mean, I already knew David Lynch by then. I had done a race.
Well, that opening scene is shocking when they're just like walking down a long stairwell, and
he beats the guys.
Yeah, beats the guy to death. He pulls a switchblade on him, and then you have Laura Dern screaming bloody murder in the corner.
I was much more freaked out by all the Wizard of Oz shit in there. Like, what's going on here?
I know they prefaced it when we watched it at the Red Museum, and they were like, "So this is a retelling of the Wizard of Oz," and the whole time I'm watching it, like, all right,
yeah,
it's David Lynch for sure. Bobby Peru though was stick with me. Those teeth,
yeah,
which is actually, now that I think about it, it's a running thing. You got his real jacked up grill in Wild at Heart, and then you have his messed up teeth in Lighthouse. Still don't know how they did that, because I saw him afterwards and he had good teeth afterwards.
Yeah, I got to think about Willem Dafoe now. I've been seeing him.
Got like a little nub tooth and just a grimy grill. He plays that old, crusty, salty White House keeper just perfectly. It's so good.
It does. It's so good. It's so weird. That's one of those movies when I saw it in the theater, it's just like you're seeing it and the people around you are like, that half people are like, not doing this. And I've been to a few of those where I've been in a theater with like 8 people or 10 people, or like I was talking to Eric about that, like going to midnight movies and like, half people walk out because they're like, you're seeing something so extreme, like Dawn of the Dead or one of those like crazy horror movies from the 80s, so. Yeah.
That was an experience that I had at when I saw the Vivitch at a small art house theater in Davis, and it was probably seated 40 people in that little theater, and no one walked out, but there was audible groans and people saying, "That's it," as it was ending, and I had to sit for a moment and just like take in what I'd seen once the movie was over, and like, wow, that was something. That stuck with me. I've probably rewatched that movie. I'm on my 6th or 7th viewing on that easily. It's so good.
Yeah. And that's usually the sign to me of a movie that, at least if nothing else, it's the vision of that person. If it's loved and hated, and I've been on both ends of that stick, but usually that means that something at least interesting is happening there. Because if everyone's just like, it was good.
It's not milquetoast. Yeah. It's definitely, it's not Paul Mall Cop. It's not down the middle.
And that's right now. I mean, that's the trio, right? Is Eggers and and Peele and Astor are all making movies that are like definitely their own things. They each have their own style, and they're all like pretty polarizing.
Yeah, I have my mixed emotions about Jordan Peele's stuff. Like I really enjoyed Get Out a lot.
Right.
I think he did just right with the amount of comedy that was in there and the amount of like good storyline. and the ridiculousness of it, where he's literally about to cut the dude's head off and put the brain in the
It's
body.
like mad scientist time at
Yeah,
the
you're,
end.
you're like, this is goofy. This
Yeah.
movie felt so serious up until now, and but I liked that part of it. Us didn't land on me nearly as much, but
Yeah.
there was Erica, Tim Heidecker really worked for me.
Oh yeah, that couple was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I would add to that list. Well, I would add, and I can't think of her name. I'm gonna kill myself now. The one who did Babadook.
Oh, couldn't tell you her name, but yeah, I love that movie a lot.
And she just did the Nightingale. If you didn't see the Nightingale last year,
Oof.
that is a brutal. But it is a brutal movie. But when you get past the brutality, I actually
I enjoyed. It was great.
It. Yeah.
I don't know if I enjoyed it, but I did like I liked the end result when it was all done. I asked my I thought it was going to be more of like a empowering like female lead movie, and so I told my dear girlfriend, I said, "Oh, Brianna, let's watch this movie before you have to go to work." And we were sitting there for like 2 hours, and she's just looking at me like, "You decided to fill my head with this before I had to go to work." Thank you. It was
certain movies like Hereditary. You just can't. I mean, actually, anything Ari Aster, you can't show it to people without really either knowing the person really well or really give them a good preamble. Like, hey, this is gonna be rough.
You go back and listen to this is for you, Bruce, and also the people who are listening. Check out our podcast, Middle Class Film Class. It's available on all podcast services. But we did Hereditary as one of our episodes, and I had my mother. She asked me the week before. She goes, "Hey, I want to watch the movie you guys are watching this week. What are you watching?" And I told her, I said, "It's Hereditary," and I have to warn you, there is some scenes. There's one scene in particular that's very hard to watch, and she watched the movie 3 times that week. And then called into the show when we were doing the show and gave her a review after 3 viewings. And it's very funny. But yeah, it is. You do have to preface it and say, be ready for some shit.
Yeah, I'll have to listen to that for sure. Cause that's definitely one of my favorites. I mean, that year, that was I think that one, Mandy and.
Ooh, Mandy was great.
Yeah, that one, Mandy and Annihilation, I think were my favorite movies that year. And both, when I did my YouTube videos, I was just starting to do YouTube reviews and stuff. I did my first YouTube videos. I think Hereditary, I ended by explaining it with action figures to try to understand.
Just like Tony Collette's character.
Yeah, exactly. And I did something similar with Annihilation. I explained the ending of Annihilation, but I used like Toy Story figures and like some of my kids' like Pokemon plush toys and stuff. Because that's a trippy one too. I
would say Alex Garland has my attention a little bit more than Jordan Peele when it comes to modern filmmaker. His stuff is great. I mean, have you seen Devs on FX?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I watched Devs all the way through. I did a few videos on that because when I was getting towards the 5th and 6th, or what was the last episode? Was it 7, 8? I forget. When I was getting to the last 2 or 3 episodes, I did my own predictions of what was going to be happening, and then I did one at the very final one about whether it was a happy or not happy ending. And my theories around that.
I think I saw those when you were releasing those. I was actively watching the series, and I was like, I'm not going to watch anything.
Kind of sit back a little bit. Yeah. God, I love that series. It's so good.
I did feel like there was some times where it was dragging a little bit, and the main actress, I don't know if it was on purpose, but her just like monotone deliverance of her lines, like she was in a Yorgos Lanthimos movie, was it's a little bit for me, because I'm like, give me a little something. But then I realized, she had more depth in some other stuff I've seen her in since, and she also played the sex robot in Ex Machina.
Yep.
They did the great dance scene with Oscar Isaac.
For sure.
And I'm like, oh yeah, she was totally different in that. So it must have been a choice, but it was.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, cause there's so much in there about like whether it's determinism and whether you have any control over your path and stuff. So I don't know how much of that was to kind of play up the idea of her.
Yeah.
Not having.
The concept is a really great thing to think about too. And if you've ever thought about the concept of free will and whether or not we do have free will, I don't believe that we don't have free will. I've listened to a lot of great people who I respect a lot who think that free will is a not true. It's a concept that does not exist. and that we're all deterministic on the path that we're going to set in stuff. So I can hear the arguments and disagree with them, but it really was painted in a very beautiful way in that movie. Right. It was a way of getting this message across that I've never even thought you could tell a story or to send a message like that, which is the great part about movies, you know?
Definitely Garland is the closest thing we have right now in sci-fi to like Kubrick. And I'm saying in sci-fi because he's the only one that's really tackling like hardcore theoretical sci-fi and really pushing it. Because it's hard to do that. And it's pretentious as hell to even try. But he, you know, it is. But I mean, but he finds a way, for me at least, to make it entertaining and he really has guts. Like the ending of Annihilation, I guarantee no studio wanted the ending of Annihilation to be what the ending of Annihilation was.
No way.
Because it's just bonkers. And you know you're going to lose a good chunk of your eyes and be like, okay, I'm out, whatever.
Yeah, from the second you see Jennifer Jason Leigh with skin over her eyes till the end, you're just like, what?
You're just like, no, this is dumb. You know, that's a lot of people just say this is dumb. I mean, I loved it too, but I mean, I loved it partially just how audacious it was and how he was just willing to follow it all the way through. And Devs was the same sort of thing. Devs was just, it knew what it wanted. And like you said, it could have been padded out a little bit as far as the actual plot. But there was always something interesting there. And some of the things that he weaves in by the time you get to the end are truly amazing. And there's some stuff, it's mind-bending no matter how you look at it.
Very good. Yeah. Very good.
And once again, he did not give up at all at the end. And people do say, oh, he kind of had there is that, whether it was a happy ending, not happy ending, but I think that you can definitely see that not being a happy ending, you know? So yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. I like talking movies with you.
It's fun stuff for sure.
Yeah.
Everybody ended up doing this with it. I mean, we could just go on and on and on, but we probably should wrap it. It's after midnight here. Yeah. So.
Oh, I know. I forgot you're ahead of me.
My wife's probably like, he's talking in the room. Can he please stop?
He's talking to that child in there.
Yeah. What's happening? No, she knows. She's resigned, I think, a little bit. So, you know.
We'll have to get you on the show, and you know, in what capacity, we'll have to sort that out because we don't do video. You know, we're pretty base entry level. Like I said, we structure the show like a radio show. So we have segments. You know, we could do streaming picks. You can get you in and give us some recommendations. You could sit in with one of the movies if there's one that you particularly seems like it resonates well with you. You know, just missed Brazil. I feel like you probably could have given us some good feedback on Brazil.
It's been so long since I've seen it. I'd have to watch it again. But yeah, it's a good one.
But yeah, we'll get you on there, man. It'd be very cool. I think you would jive well with our sensibilities, and we have a lot of fun on the show.
Yeah, you guys do, and I definitely like you have some interesting personality mixes. I think that's similar to our movie Mainline, the same way. You know, like the characters that we have. I mean, from Greg all the way to Eric and Lewis, they're very different kind of personalities and stuff.
I have a very special soft spot in my heart for Greg. When I started listening to cinematics after Anderson branched off, I've been listening to the Film Vault since I was it was 2004 maybe, something like that. And when I back in early days,
Orange Couch days,
pre Orange Couch days even, and it was I had at the time I was painting cars. I was in a different segment of my auto body world, and I was painting cars, and I had 6 hours a day with my headphones on and a respirator on in the booth painting cars. And I just would chew through podcasts, This American Life and How Did This Get Made and Radio Lab and just anything I can get, my Doug Loves Movies, the Film Vault. And I would spend so much time with Anderson and Brian in my head. And when he branched off and started talking with Greg, I was like, man, this guy's so wholesome. It's like I want to give him a hug, you know?
Yeah.
So Greg, if you're listening, love you, buddy.
But he's so smart, and he's just got like so much in his brain. Like, I'm just like, dang, how do you remember? I'm terrible with actors' names. Like, I can remember plots and the basic concepts. I can remember lots of weird movies, but when it comes to the actors, I'll be like, that one that was the same person that was in that thing, and he's be like, oh yeah, it's blah. You know, he's like, that was also in these 5 different movies, and I'm just like, damn, Greg.
Encyclopedia of movies for sure, and actors.
Yeah, and then like it's become a joke on our show now. Like he can drop like name drop in every single segment now. He'd
Yeah,
be
I'm
like,
sure.
oh yeah, I interviewed Malcolm McDowell when he was coming up for Halloween, the Rob Zombie version, and I'll be like, what?
I know. I know it's crazy. Like, I didn't expect all that from him when I started listening. I'm like, he's talked to all these famous people. And I messaged him not too long ago because for the first time on our show, Middle Class Film Class, we got
Michael St. Michael's.
A known actor. And you may not know the guy's name, but if you've heard of the Greasy Strangler, you know who Big Ronnie is. And I just mentioned it on the show one day. We were talking about it, and we had Adam from the Night at the Red Museum call in to give his opinion on the Greasy Strangler, which Tyler forced us to watch. And we mentioned it, and I said something about, I'm going to reach out to Michael St. Michael. Let's get him on the show. Just joking. And I found him on Facebook and his publicist, and they're just like, yeah, we'd love to call in. And we had this great interview with Michael St. Michael's on the episode 41 when we reviewed Inner Space.
Yep, you did.
And it was a great time. It was really fun. And I was like, man, Greg gets to do this all the time.
But when you reach out to somebody you're really interested in, I think it's because he gets a lot of them pushed at him, which some of them are great, but I think a lot of times he's like, oh, I got to do another one. But when you do like you're doing, you're always trying to connect with someone you're interested in. If you catch that connection, it's probably going to be that much more special.
Yeah, cool.
Well, thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Appreciate
really
it.
Cool. This will to be continued is what I would say on this one.
Put a button in this one.
Yeah, we get all corporate speak on this. I'll put a pin in this, and we'll circle back around.
Brainstorm a little bit.
Yeah, let's put this on the wall with all the other ideas.
We're gonna blue sky this idea for later.
Yeah,
that's a new thing. You don't call it brainstorming, bro. You call it blue skying. It's even more wholesome and lame corporate talk.
Yeah.
Seriously, though,
I'm too old. I don't know.
Good talking to you.
You too, man. Thank you so much. Once again, Middle Class Film Class.
Listen, look us up on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play Store, anywhere you can get your podcast. And if you can't do that, just look us up on YouTube. If you YouTube search Middle Class Film Class, you will find a Bollywood series called Middle Class Film. And there's a million videos on there. So just look for the all white logo with the 3 silhouettes of our heads, our dumb heads on there. And that's us. So we transpose everything onto YouTube for people who don't have podcast players. So we have a good time.
You do. Thank you so much for coming on here, and we will talk again soon.
See you guys.